Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism, sharing tools and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from a variety of fellowships and experiences demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 speaker meeting number 367. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Julian H., a first-time Rico 12 speaker, and I'm so grateful and excited to hear from him today. His talk will be entitled, "We Let God Discipline Us." And I look forward to hearing more about this message here in a few minutes. But first, a couple of quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, visit Rico12.com. That's RECO12.com, or check the chat and show notes for links. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you so much to all of our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially this last week to Lisa and to Debbie. If you feel your higher power nudging you to make a contribution to Rico 12, the information on how to do that will be both in the chat and the show notes and on the website at rico12.com/support. Your support, both financially and by word of mouth, truly makes a difference in helping us share these messages of hope and recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now I'm going to welcome today's guest speaker, Julian H. Here's a little bit about him. Julian found his solution in sex and porn as a youth. Living in years of shame and secrets, he kept his life as a double life, portraying himself as a good man around others, but living in fear and darkness alone. In September of 2019, his way of secret living was abolished when he was introduced to the 12 steps by his loving higher power. Now, his life is forever changed as he has found a real solution and is committed to share this new way of life with others. Take it away, Julian. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Justin, and I'm so appreciative of everybody being here, both the listening audience live and those who might listen to this later on. It's kind of funny because usually I've listened to these podcasts for the whole time that Justin's been able to do this, but this is the first time in the 5 years that he's done this that I've been able to be on here. And usually I'd say, no, I can't do because of work. And this is where I think like God was involved because I just happened to be going out of town and just worked out today. So I truly believe that my higher power is in this working. And what I share today is I hope that it's helpful to somebody, at least one person. I know it'll be helpful for me because for me, sharing my experience and strength and hope has continues to help solidify my recovery. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you. And I thank my higher power that I could be here. So just as Justin shared, a little bit of my background is, so as a youth, I found sex, I found porn, as a young man, and it was my solution. It was the way that I found how to cope with life, how to cope with my emotions. And it was just such a huge part of my life. For years, it was just the way that I dealt with just the tough things in life through high school, through my early adult years. And so now I don't want to go too much into my story, but really like God was there for me when it came time to, all right, it's time to make a change in your life. And so he turned me to the 12 steps. And I'll just make a note here that when I talk about my higher power is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But as I understand, this is a very, a higher power is a very general topic. And I know that everyone has their own understanding of a higher power. So when I talk about my higher power, I hope that everyone can relate to their own. So anyways, So yeah, and just so happened to be that Justin was actually the gateway, the light that my higher power gave me to come into these 12-step rooms. And what a journey it's been since September of 2019. Um, so really, it's just been amazing. And when Justin asked me about what topic do I want to present on, the first thought that came to me was page 88 of the AA Big Book, where it reads, "We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined." And so for me, when I think about what is the simple way that was just outlined, initially I think about, okay, this is the end of step 11 in the Big Book, and now they've gone through, what do we do in the evening, what do we do throughout the day, and what do we do in our morning time. But for me, like, this topic about letting God discipline me is really just the 12 steps in its complete wholeness. And so when I think about the word discipline, I like to dive in into, like, okay, what does discipline really mean? And so I Googled and kind of did some research. So the word discipline is showing a controlled form of behavior or a way of working. And it comes from the Latin word disciplis or disciplina, which means instruction or knowledge. Now, along the lines, I'm not sure, I'm not a, I don't know what you call it, but somebody who understands language very well. But along the lines, somehow the Middle Ages came in, and the English transformed that meaning into mortification by scourging oneself. Now, scourging is, to me, a painful thing. Scourging oneself, mortification, that's a cleansing. And so, and I would say that this is really where I used to think discipline meant. Discipline was where I was punished, where I was to go through difficult pain, where I was to just suffer through really becoming something. And in a way, I would say that is true. But in my mind, whenever I heard the word discipline, and especially tying it in with God, um, I just thought, like, man, God must punish me if I'm doing things that aren't right in his view. That's what I understood. And so, and that's really what kept me stuck in my addiction for years, was I was so afraid of my higher power. I was so scared to actually give myself to him because I thought that I was going to be punished. I thought that he was going to come in with whip and destroy my life, and I wasn't going to like it. So I was quite happy with the solution I found, which was in my addiction. But thank goodness that I've come to understand that I have a wonderful and a loving higher power, that he cares for me so greatly that he does want to discipline me. But as I've learned, discipline is not what I used to think it was. Um, and I wanted to see what the word undisciplined means as well. And undisciplined, according to Google AI, is undisciplined describes a state of lacking control, organization, or self-restraint, resulting in behavior that is disorderly, unruly, or unmethodical. It can refer to a person who has not developed the habit of self-control, such as an undisciplined child, or a collective entity like an undisciplined army that lacks proper training and order. And so when I discovered that word and that meaning, it helped me to see, like, okay, undisciplined doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, that I am just horrible and that I can't do anything right. It means I have not developed the habit of self-control. I have lacked the proper training and order that I need in my life. Um, Along this lines, my wife just recently shared, we follow a couple of therapists who deal with children, and we're trying to better learn how to discipline our children in the way that I feel is much better. And what they said in this little post that they sent out: discipline is not punishment. Discipline is leadership. Discipline is teaching. Discipline is safety. And so when I think about that and how I look at my higher power now, my gosh, these 12 steps are exactly that. The 12 steps are not punishment. The 12 steps do not bring in hellfire and damnation to my life. They don't ruin my life at all. They really are teaching me how to be a better person. Going back to the Latin root, it's instruction, it's knowledge. And these 12 steps have absolutely done that for me. Before I kind of like share how that has happened, I wanted to share a scripture that I've kind of tweaked to better generalize to and to relate to the recovery world. And what it says is, for the self is an enemy to God and will be forever and ever unless the self yields to the enticings of the spiritual way and putteth off the self and becometh a saint through the grace of God and becometh as a child, submissive, meek, humble, patient, full of love, willing to submit to all things which God seeth fit to inflict upon the individual, even as a child doth submit to their father. And so this is something that I've learned that I really need to practice. The self has been the enemy to God, but also to myself. My addiction, my lust was. I'm a recovering sex addict, so lust is my addiction, and it has just been an enemy to my life, been an enemy to those around me, been an enemy to my higher power. And so as I put off myself and turn to the spiritual way, these 12 steps in my mind, the power of God, my higher power, can change me into who he needs me to be. And that's been one of the greatest blessings in my life. And so kind of as I've gone through the 12 steps and look at it, like it's been interesting to see how this process is a disciplining process. So, I mean, if I go into step one, I think of how in step one, I admit that I'm powerless over my addiction and that my life has become unmanageable. Well, the undisciplined way was, no, I got this. I'm good. I don't need to admit that because I'm macho man. I can do whatever it takes. I don't need any of that. I don't need to be honest about anything. That was really what my life was like. And so step one to me is learning, disciplining, teaching me how to be honest, how to admit to myself, to my fellows, to my higher power that really I don't got this. I really don't have any power over this, and that my life's a mess. And as a result, I come to step two. I come to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Because yeah, I mean, I grew up in a religion. I learned about God. I understood who he was. And like I said earlier, I was afraid. I was so scared of what God would do to me because I thought my former understanding of discipline was I'm going to get whipped. I'm going to get scourged. I'm going to just go through all these difficult things if I come and be honest to my loved ones, if I come to my God. And so being able to come to the steps and learn that, okay, I really don't have any power. So who am I going to turn to? And thank goodness for sponsors. Another another way that God has disciplined me is he sends people who have taught me that there is a lot more than I think there is. And so that was very crucial in coming to believe that a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity was understanding that I have a higher power who can really, who really loves me, who really doesn't want to hurt me. He wants to heal me. He wants to help me along the way, and he wants to change me. And so when I've come to understand and accept that that is what my higher power's best interest is, that allows me to make the decision to turn my life and will over to his care. And when I made that decision initially in recovery, it didn't mean that I had a perfect knowledge of my higher power. It just meant that I have understood that one, I'm totally powerless, that I have no power on my own to do this. And so who am I going to turn to? I'm going to turn to a power that, as I see other recovering addicts they have a power that they turn to. So why don't I try that power? And I make that decision. And as I made that decision, I am very grateful to say that that power has not disappointed me. Every time I make that decision, one day at a time, every single day, sometimes every moment, I'm able to find strength and hope. I'm able to be, when I'm willing, as I turn that will over to his care, I'm able to see how he's ready to teach me, how he's ready to show me the way. And the next several steps are that. In step 4, I made a searching and fearless moral inventory myself, where this was probably something that was one of the most crucial aspects of my recovery. I was just talking to a sponsee last night about how we were talking about inventory and how for this brother of mine, he shared how he feels like emotionally numb and just insensitive. And I think about my own experience, like, yeah, I was definitely there. And until I started making a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself, I began to see like, oh, wow, look at all these things that I've done. Where was I? And it opened up my emotional pathway. It helped me to see and feel about myself, and to see that there are things that drove me to these behaviors. There are emotions behind these things, and I need to come to terms with that. And that was really hard, being able to honestly go through that process. But once again, God's not going to leave me helpless. He had a sponsor there to help me along the whole way and walk me through this process. And that definitely made it easier when I came to step 5, which was I needed to admit to my higher power, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. And so I'm so thankful that there was a sponsor that was there to help me walk through that process. And in that process, to me, a sponsor is another way that God is showing me discipline. He's kind of, at least my sponsor right now, he's kind of listed out these ways of, okay, if we want to do recovery, this is what it looks like. We're going to practice living these steps. There's also including daily check-ins. There's doing your step work every day. There's being able to sponsor others. This is all the pathway that's going to come as you practice these steps, as I live a disciplined life. And that has been crucial. Because when I started the steps, I started in a group where there wasn't any push for sponsors. And so it was kind of like, do your steps and do one a week. And then by the end of the 12th week, you'll be checking off that box and you're a free man. And I got to step 4 and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is way overbearing. This is a lot. And so that's where God directed me to a sponsor and start that process. And yeah, so having a sponsor was definitely a way that God has shown me the spiritual way, another way to be disciplined and to live in a way that I see somebody allowing their higher power to change their lives, because I want that. I want to follow in those footsteps. And that's really where the discipline comes, is learning from that individual, is seeing that they are in a safe place because of the way they're living. And I want to practice what they're doing. And anyways, doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly what they do, because recovery is an individual journey. And so, yes, I've learned a lot from my sponsors, but I've changed the way that I've done things differently than what I initially learned from them, as I've come to deepen my connection with my higher power. So I'm very grateful for that process. So moving on to step 6, I've admitted to God, to myself, and to my sponsor about my wrongs. And so step 6 is, all right, here's another layer of discipline. We're going to become entirely ready to have God remove all my defects of character. Ooh, I thought saying that I'm powerless over lust and that my life's unmanageable was a hard step, but coming to step 6 and 7, being able to say, I don't know, I really like my resentments. I really like being afraid. I really thrive in being able to go and hide away and feel sorry for myself when these things come up. And so this is another layer of discipline, was being able to, okay, going back to step 2 and 3, if I really trust my higher power, am I ready to actually accept that God's going to take care of me? Is he that whipping God that I initially thought, or is he going to be that God who's ready to teach me, who's ready to help me to be in a place of safety, to teach me how I can improve in my life, to make a change? And so as I became ready to remove those defects, then I can go on to step 7, and I humbly ask him to do so. And that's a daily process. These steps are not just a checked off the box. It's a daily thing that I have to do every single day. I need to each and every single day come to my higher power and say, look, this anger is a little too much. I mean, for crying out loud, this morning when I am getting ready for this presentation, we drove we drove all day yesterday I'm from Spokane, Washington, and we drove to Utah. And I was just like the whole drive, like everything was taking longer. We're just taking forever. And so this morning I'm just like filled with fear, like, my gosh, like I'm not even ready for this. And so I turn to my higher power and say, God, I give you this fear that I'm dealing with. Like this is a lot. This is a lot that I'm feeling, and I don't have this. And so being able to give it to him, he was able to help me see that, okay, don't worry about this. You, you've been living in recovery. You've have these resources. I'm going to make this happen. And I truly feel that right now as we're talking. And so that's an example of where I'm disciplined to turn to my higher power and turn over my life and my defects over to him. Step 8, another layer of discipline. Now I have to go. Now I have to make a list of all the people that I've wronged and make amends to them. I need to come up in wherever possible, and that was just another layer of being able to do that, of discipline. And so that was tough initially. I remember when I first went through steps 8 and 9, I was very half measured in that process. And that didn't do me wonders. Eventually, I truly believe that because I wasn't willing to do that, I gave up and said, no, I'm not going to do these certain individuals because I know better than you, God. And that led me back to relapsing. And so now, as I continue to make amends, I need to be all in. I need to allow my higher power to do that, to guide me and give me the knowledge, and understanding that, this is how we're going to make life changes. And as I've done these amends, it has been life changing. I mean, the word amends is making change. And through that process, my higher power has really influenced my life to make deeper changes as I've shared what I've needed to change with these individuals that I needed to make right. And then step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. To me, this is the essence of daily discipline. This is where I need to practice these things, these steps every day on a daily basis, every moment throughout the day. And it's been a real life change. This is, to me, the meat and potatoes of my recovery, is being able to bring all of that together and making it a daily practice. Where I used to think, where I said when I first came into recovery, it was like, I just do a step a week and I'll be done. But no, this is a life-changing process. And going into step 11, as I practice these principles that I've just listed out, I'm able to practice these principles. And then I take it to my higher power and I talk about it and I say, okay, here's what today looked like. Here's what right now looks like. What do I need to do differently? What do I need to change? Going back to that, being able to become, as a child, submissive, meek, humble, patient. To me, that's the essence of step 11, is the discipline to come to my higher power every single day, throughout the day, multiple times a day, and being able to know that I'm seeking his knowledge in my life and wanting to know what he would have me do. Not because I think that I am less than, but because I am in a relationship with my higher power. I am learning from the master teacher in my life as I turn to him. And then step 12, as a result of these steps, as a result of this spiritual awakening that's happened in my life, I am now ready to carry this message to other addicts and to practice all of these principles in all my life. And man, this is like, to me, step 12 is a promise and a guide and a discipline action, a choice to be able to take what I've learned and share it with others, just like I'm doing right now. What a blessing it is. And part of that blessing is, okay, you've practiced the discipline to practice these steps to change your life. And now I'm ready to share this with other people. And I've seen that as I've totally come all in into these steps, into the rooms of recovery, that I've been blessed with the ability to love and care for those around me and to share what's working for me. And there's too many things, too many ways to list of how I'm doing that now in my life, but what a blessing that is. So just to end off, I really love in the big book this phrase, or this paragraph, page 68 in the big book, where it talks about really this connection with my higher power. And for me, it hits home as I've learned and thought about how God is disciplining me. And so it reads in here on page 68. If you all have your big book and want to follow along, it's the second paragraph. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him, does He enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men have faith of courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear, direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. And, I mean, that speaks true to exactly how I feel about my relationship with my higher power now. He is who I turn to on a daily basis to receive strength, to receive guidance, to now receive loving discipline instead of what I used to think, which was punishment and scourging and disappointment. Now, discipline to me is all about love. It's all about love for my higher power. And I'm not afraid to say that I rely on that strength. I get a lot of times people come up to me and say, "Oh, look, like you've been sober for whatever 2-3 years, and now you can move on in your life." And like, no, I can't. For one, because going back to step one, I'm powerless, and two, I have come to learn that I really have a deep connection with my higher power, and He is my strength and my light. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm so grateful that I am an addict, because this is where it's turned me to be able to come to see how God can change my life, and to be able to see changes in other people's lives, and to get to know amazing people that have changed my life as a result. This is all my higher power working in my life as a result of allowing Him to discipline me. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with you all. And with that, I'll pass.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you so much, Julian. I really appreciate your share as you walked through your experience, strength, and hope in this. And we let God discipline us. I love some of the things you talked about with discipline and helping shift the perception of that in my mind. So we're going to start off a reminder to our live audience. If you have questions for Julian, please type them in the chat. I will get to those and we'll ask those questions as we go along. If you would like to remain anonymous, in other words, if you don't want me to read your first name, just type it in, put anonymous or direct message it to me, and I'll get to those there. Our first question comes from our live audience. This is from Paula. Paula asks, what verse of scripture did you quote? Talk to us a little bit about that, Julian.
For sure. It comes from the Book of Mormon. It's Mosiah 3:19. And for me, that scripture has been like, I read it all my life. I was like, okay, great concept. But as I've been in recovery, it has been such a stalwart in my life. Just a huge impact. Because really where I used to think that, I have to be a little child again, like, oh, I need to be all like, I can't do anything. But no, that's not what I look at it as. It's more of giving up, like I changed in there, the self. We talk about in the big book about how selfishness is dangerous. Selfishness is so dangerous to me. And so when I read that, it makes me think that, God's best interest in me is to change me to become a saint, which to me is somebody who's out there to help other people, not just the holy individual that sometimes I can refer to as a saint. It's somebody who's got their boots on the ground, who's ready to help and serve people. But I can't do that unless I am willing to give up the self. So thanks for asking.
Thank you, Julian. Why don't you take a second and define what you mean by the self in this? Talk to us about, sometimes I say, you know what, I want to do sometimes the self, I say, this is what I feel is best for me is, one entity, and other times it seems to be something that's driving me from outside. Talk to me about your understanding of the self.
Yeah, I mean, the best place to talk about that, where I've come to understand what the self is page 62 of the big book. First paragraph there, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. When I think about self, I really think about me, myself, and I. Nobody else is in the picture. I mean, if I think about fear, so for example, with fear this morning, if if I really was if fear was the driving force, I would have called Justin up and say, "Hey, Justin, I'm not ready for this. I gotta excuse myself." That's self. Self would be, nope, I'm not ready for this. I'm ready to just step away and say that I can't do this. But turning to God, giving that self, that fear, that selfishness to God, is me being able to say, God, I really have this going on within me, and I give it to you. What do I need to do? How can I be ready? And no, I still didn't know exactly how this was going to turn out, but at least my higher power gave me sense of self, or sense of peace, to know that, I've got this. Like, I will lead this and everything will work out. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much. And thank you for not calling me, an hour beforehand and saying, hey, I'm out. Panic button then. All right. No, this is good stuff. So another question I have for you, Julian, you talked about practices of discipline, and what discipline means. What are some of the things that you feel you're being invited to do, whether it be by your higher power or those around you, to help discipline you in the manner of teaching, instructing, and becoming a better person?
Good question. I think initially, one way that my higher power, I talked a lot about it, was these 12 steps. I needed a written down form because my connection with God was not very strong. And so I needed a written down way to be disciplined. And one way was through the 12 steps. Another way that I feel that God speaks to me is allowing me to work with a sponsor. that sponsor, and I've had several over the years I've been in recovery, has been a huge key to what I need to do. So for an example, well, just so y'all know, Justin was my first sponsor. And so what he told me was, all right, in the morning, you're going to do your step work and send me what you did. In the evening, you're going to journal. You're going to go to meetings. You're going to talk to people. You're going to call them on the phone. And so, for me, starting out in recovery, like that wasn't how, I didn't know how to do any of those things. And sure, I could just walk in and be like, all right, God disciplined me, but I wouldn't know how God would talk to me either. And so he sent me a sponsor. And that sponsor is that voice to me of my higher power of what I need to do. And so having an outside influence to tell me what I need to do, going back to that teaching, it's not this punishment. It's about this learning, this knowledge, this way of life to practice these principles to help me in my life to become who I need to be. And so that's just an example, a sponsor. And so now a practice in my life is I do my journal every morning and every night. That is something that I got to do because it helps me to be accountable to myself, but I also send it to check in with my sponsors or my sponsor and sponsees just for accountability. So that is one aspect, but also having my morning routines. And back to the big book, as I said earlier, step 11, that's kind of what they touch about. It's like, this is the way that we discipline, or we become disciplined, is practicing this period of prayer throughout the day, in the evening, at the end of the day, and in the morning. That is a practice that I do in my life. Is I have to check in and talk with my higher power morning, evening, and throughout the day. So that's a few of the things that I do.
So, Julian, you used a couple of words in there that I want to touch on. You said, I got to do these things. Some of the things I got to do, like you said, I got to journal in the morning and the evening. I have to stay connected with my higher power. Talk to us about I don't know, was there a shift from I got to do these things and I have to do these things to where you're saying now I got to do these things and I have to do these things? Is that a perception shift from, 6-7 years ago till now?
Definitely. When I first came in recovery, it was like, okay, I got to do it because my sponsor told me to do it. But now it's, I got to do it because I want to keep my relationship with God healthy. I want to keep my recovery healthy and alive. It's not so much driven by, going back to fear. Like I would say when I started recovery, it was driven by selfishness, self-seeking. Now it's in a place of, I am practicing step 11. Essentially, I want to constantly connect with my higher power and seek what His will would be for me. And I do that. I find that as I practice those actions, that disciplined way of life, and also like it gives me great joy to be able to connect with Him. Gives me great joy to connect with others, to share my experience, and to be able to just practice those things, because it's not so much about now I've got my feet on a fire, like, oh, you better do this or life's not going to be good for you. It's now about, okay, I do it because it blesses my life. It blesses the lives of others. And it's really what I want to do. I'm willing to submit as that child to my Father who is in heaven. So that'll pass.
Thank you, Julian. All right. Next question I have for you is, you kind of closed out your share saying, I'm grateful that I'm an addict because it brings me to this point. And, I still run into people who have been in the rooms for years and years and years who struggle saying, hey, I'm Justin and I am an addict, because they just think that's a label that drags them down. Talk to me about that label and why you're grateful to carry it. Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
I mean, I don't know where I would be, honestly, if I wasn't where I'm at. Sometimes when I worked with my current sponsor, he kind of had me do like a history of my genealogy, basically. And it's been like in the workings for generations that this is where I've come to. And being able to see that, this is much bigger than I am. But, like I don't believe that God's punishing me for being an addict. He's actually allowing to use me to be of benefit to others, because I'm using these experiences to help those who are struggling as well. So that's why I'm grateful. Like, God is using me to where I couldn't be used if I wasn't here. So.
Man, that's such a powerful concept, and something that when I finally was willing to embrace, changed everything. It changed me from being somebody who sat in the back row or just disappeared, put my elbows on my knees and my head in my hands and just avoided everything and was invisible, and not useful at all to my higher power, to becoming someone that is useful. At least I try to be. And it's led me to do this type of stuff right here, where we're recording in a speaker meeting. And that's something that I never, ever, ever, ever would have done had this change in the acceptance of, I'm an addict. I'm a mess. God, do with me what I can't do for myself. So love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
All right.
on that point, Justin, like you were asking earlier about like, why do I do these things? And this is really the fruit, the meat and potatoes of why, because I feel called to be able to share and to help others. So it's more about my desire to be of service to God and to my fellows. So anyways.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Julian. We have an anonymous question that came in from our live audience. This person says, Julian, thank you for sharing. You've mentioned that you realized and your life was changed and transformed. What do you attribute a decision or action? Was there a moment, in other words, that helped you see others before yourself? And how do you navigate that each day? So how I interpret that, how did you get out of selfishness, just looking at yourself, to looking at others? And how does that change occur?
I would say it happened early on in recovery. When I first came, I was definitely driven by myself. All right, I need to fix myself up. Because my life's a mess. But I think as I began to be involved in my groups and really practice these principles, especially making amends, steps 8 and 9, where I saw like, wow, I can change what I've done. I can't change what I've done, but I can make right for what I've done wrong. And just being able to have the peace that comes by doing that. I think the first time I went through that process was really helpful. And honestly, I should say, because earlier I said how when I first went through the steps and I came to 8 and 9, I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to do that. And so when I went through the second time and became a lot more honest and more in with both feet into the water, I think that was really where it changed my recovery, where it changed my life. Was like, wow, I need to quit making this be by myself. And still, I'm human. I have the tendency to go back and say, like, I don't want to do, I still am selfish. I still don't want to do some of these things. And that's where this process of the daily accountability, taking that inventory and turning to the steps, is that practice of, okay, I don't want to do it today, but I give it to you, God, and allows me to be more open. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Julian. for me, one of those keys is for me to be willing to say, I don't want to do this today, God. I really don't. And be honest in that. And then say, but your will, not mine, be done. Even if it's a little bit hesitant, resentful, whatever. Talk to us a little bit about that honesty and what that means to you, and how you go about that when you have resistance to doing what you feel, what you believe is the right thing to do in that moment.
What a loaded question. I mean, as you said that, I think about this amazing man who was asked to do probably the hardest thing that anyone has ever asked to do. And he willingly said, not my will, but thine be done. And so I think back on that example. And so I think where that honesty comes, the honesty comes as I'm willing to practice discipline to these steps. When I am more about like, yeah, I don't really got to do this, then it's easier for me to get away from that and excuse myself and rationalize. But the more I stay in that practice of, okay, I keep to these routines, it's keeping me healthy and strong spiritually. Then I'm more able to honestly say, okay, this morning, for example, like this week has been really good for me to keep those practices, that discipline. Um, and so it was easy for me to say today, like, like, yes, I can text Justin and say, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to jump out. But it is easier for me today to say, like, I've made a commitment. I made a commitment to recovery. I made a commitment to my higher power. I made a commitment to Justin to be on this. So God, like, this is my situation. I will not mind be done, and be able to see that, God reassures that everything's going to be okay and work it out. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. As we start rolling into the end of this, one thing that I'd like to go back to and touch on again is one of the things you mentioned about discipline and the definition of it. Discipline, you said leadership, teaching, and training. Talk to us a little bit about how, as you practice these things, and I think we've touched on it a little bit, but go deeper. How you feel God has put you in positions of leadership and in positions of an example to stand as an example, a light on the hill. Talk to us a little bit more about that. Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead.
Some examples have been, we've been able to start. I mean, I've been grateful to be a part of helping start up a couple of local meetings here in Spokane, where we had, so SAL is my group of choice. And that's where I've felt the greatest support, I would say. And so in SAL, I've been to a lot of virtual meetings, and it came up the idea of like, oh, how about we start an online or an in-person group? And so I think in one place, one example has been to be able to be here and start those up here in Spokane. So in the last 3 years, we've started a couple up, and that's been such a blessing. Also, just been able to share in my faith community my story. There's been a couple times where I've been asked to just share my story, especially with youth who I definitely relate to. They're in the same boat and position that I've been in, and being able to share my story is another place where God has asked me to be there, to be a light to others. just as others have been a light to me. So those are a couple examples. And also, I think here in my own home, yes, I'm a father of 3 children, but that doesn't mean that I'm a leader, not necessarily. But as I've embraced these practices and practice these principles in all my affairs, it's helped me to become a more disciplined father in the way that I lovingly discipline my children, not hellfire and damnation and punishment to my kids. It's more about this loving way that my higher power is teaching me. So those are a few examples.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julian. All right. Before we wrap up, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us as a group here?
Oh, and this is a way of life. I kind of just talking what I've already said and just reiterate that, my life was such a mess. It was such an undisciplined way of life, and it was a mess. It was unmanageable. And so I wouldn't have it any other way than to turn to God and allow Him to discipline my life. And as scary as that is or was, and sometimes is, like today, for example, it is a huge, I would say a huge, can't think of the word, huge impact, I would say, in my life to be able to allow God on a daily basis to discipline me, just as the big book says. I think there's a promise in here in the big book. That I really love. And I'm sure we all know what they are. The 9-step promises or the 12 promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us, and we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And so these promises come true in my life because I allow God to discipline me, to teach me, and to show me the way. So really, for me, if I can say anything else, it's allow God into your life, whoever that higher power looks like. Doesn't have to be my higher power. However you understand that higher power, it changes lives, not just my own, but those around me. So
Thank you so much, Julian, for an amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. I'm so grateful for your willingness to share your experience, your strength, and your hope. And thank you for sharing on discipline. Discipline. We let God discipline us. I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here on my undiscipline. A few months back, I had so many speakers lined up that I just kind of got lazy and let it go out. And guess what? I've come to the end of those speakers. I need more speakers. So if there's anybody out there listening that you feel your higher power is putting a topic on your heart that you'd like to speak about in this meeting, please reach out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com. We'll get you lined up with that. Next week, we have Brandon who's going to be speaking to us. But in the meantime, send me an email. I would love to get you lined up and have people on here. Like I said earlier when we started, any and all fellowships, any and all addictions, any and all backgrounds and locations. Happy to have you speak. All right. So if you haven't already done so, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And it's a powerful way to work step 12 and share this recovery message with others. As I mentioned, Next week, we'll hear from Brandon. Stay updated in our WhatsApp group. You can join that. I'll put that information is in the chat and in the show notes of the podcast on our email list, so you're always notified of who's speaking and a little bit about them. If you're not yet subscribed, please send me an email. Once again, Rico12pod, that's RECO12POD @gmail.com. We'll get you lined up. Now, let's wrap this meeting up with the third step prayer that Julian will send us out of here with.
A moment of silence for the addict who still suffers. Higher power, we offer ourselves to thee to build with us and to do with us as you will. Relieve us of the bondage of self, that we may better do your will. Take away our difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those we would help of your power, your love, and your way of life. May we do your will always. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Julian. Everybody, remember there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
It ain't about the body, it ain't about the skin. It's the lie that whisper you'll be whole if you give in. It's the high before the hollow, the click before the fall. It's the ache that never satisfies no matter what you saw. They told me it was natural, just boys being boys, but I was choking down poison dressed up like a choice, and now I'm calling it by name. No more hiding in the fog. It ain't just porn I'm fighting, it's the God I made of want. Porn of problem, lust is the thief, selling us heaven and leaving us grief. I wanted to love, but I learned how to crave. Now I'm digging through ashes and calling it brave. She ain't an object and I ain't a king. Porn is the problem, not just a thing. And what about her? Yeah, the other side. The girl who learned early she was worth what she supplied. She didn't want to be seen, she wanted to be wanted. Now she's starved for attention and Instagram haunted. It's the hunger to be lusted, mistaken for love. And both sides end up empty, beneath and above. Two mirrors cracked, reflecting shame, chasing validation instead of names. Porn is the problem, it sells a fake cure, turns humans to products, makes touch feel impure. We thought we were free, but we're slaves in disguise, scrolling through bodies with dead in our eyes. This ain't just a screen, it's a spiritual war. Porn is the problem, and we can't ignore. I want more than a moment behind a glassy screen. I want covenant, not dopamine. She ain't here for my escape. She's the temple, not the bait. Porn is the problem, but truth is the light. I'm learning to see her with heaven in sight. I'm laying down idols, I'm turning from shame. And love don't come cheap, it comes with a name. I ain't cured, but I'm done with the game. Porn is the problem, and I'm not the same. I used to worship lust, now I'm learning how to love.